Oh boy. Well, this is a video I've been planning for a while now. So, Pokémon. With over 800 of their little buggers spread across a franchise which is now in its 7th generation and has a game on pretty much every Nintendo handheld since the original Game Boy, there's pretty much no escaping it at this point. I would have made a Pokemon Go joke here, but nobody plays that anymore, seeing its relevancy crashed harder than the fucking Hindenburg. Anyways, I'm not really going to go into much detail building up this one, given the multitude of videos on this topic made by a plethora of Poketubers, with the sole exception of me actually doing the bloody research. I also don't care much for competitive play, so there's that too. Won't stop me from mentioning stats and move pools though along potential roads in battle, as I know that a fair few are into that sort of thing. This also isn't a countdown because... peanuts. Actually, it's because I can't rank these at all. Yeah, I can pick my 18 favourites, basically one Pokemon per type, but can't rank them in order of how much I like them. Oops. So, today on the drawing board, join me as we basically take a look at my favourite Pokemon. The normal type is interesting. Being the only type that has only one weakness, no advantages offensively, and no resistances, it's simultaneously one of the best and worst defensive types, and that's not going into its general stat average. Look at that, it's pretty much even split. Little weird, but it means that this type can fill pretty much any role you want. Supporters? You got it. Sweepers? But of course. Walls? Yep. Tanks? Well... oh, slacking, how I misjudged you. At first, I wasn't the biggest fan of this Pokemon. In fact, I actually found it borderline unusable. I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to work a way around that ability or even why that ability is there in the first place. But then again, 12-year-old me was a bigger idiot than the person in Thunderpants, so that opinion is no longer valid. Well, hey! I will admit that slacking isn't the easiest Pokemon to use, despite its attack and defense stats being fucking huge. Sounds pretty cool, right? And it does, until you factor in its ability, Truant, which makes it only able to attack every 2 turns, which essentially forces you to find ways to work around this necessary drawback, like smacking Cofagrigs to get the mummy ability, or having a partner in double or triple battles use moves like Gaster Acid or Worry Seed to suppress it. And watch as your enemies cower before Slacking's incredible bulk as it tanks it like a boss, and smacks Shuckles around so hard that the sturdy ability means jack shit. However, if you can't find a way around this drawback, or find yourself in a single battle against the 801 Pokemon that aren't Cofagrigus, Slacking is still capable of pulling its weight as a wall or tank through its previously mentioned high physical defense of 100, with the potential to get as high as 328! Great Kyogre's watery balls, that's huge! And more than enough to allow Slacking to survive for the turns that you're immobilized. And when you inevitably counterattack, your opponents will feel it. By God, will they feel it! Flying-type Pokemon are generally a must-have for most Pokemon teams, especially in the single-player. Yay for fast travel! With flying types generally having access to some pretty decent moves, and their usual high speed allows them to serve as pretty effective sweepers. A fair amount are also available right at the start of each game, and for those trained with enough time and dedication to train an early game Pokemon all the way through the rest of your adventure, they get rewarded with a Pokemon that can really hold its own. And Generation 6 was no exception. At first I didn't know what to think of Fletchling, didn't really seem all interesting when I first got one, but after deciding to stick with it, and watching it evolve all the way into a Talonflame, I was honestly quite impressed with this little hawk of fiery death and destruction, and that's thanks to its ability, Gale Wings. It received a bit of a nerf in Sun and Moon, now only kicking in at full health to reduce the number of people spamming Brave Bird over and over, but in X and Y, this thing was the king of the skies. What does Gale Wings do? Simple, gives flying-type moves priority. Sounds pretty dull on the surface when you consider its fairly respectable attack stat of 81, and then its moveset includes Brave Bird, Aerial Ace, and Acrobatics, the latter of which doubles in power if the Pokemon isn't holding anything. It's going to hurt. A lot. It also gains access to the incredibly useful Tailwind, which will double its already decent speed of 127 to an incredibly fast 254. It also possesses an interesting type combination of fire and flying, A typing which gives it access to a decent arsenal of fire-type moves such as Flame Charge, which will boost its already high speed stat every time it lands a hit, the ever-still effective Flare Blitz, and the incredibly useful and powerful Flamethrower and Fire Blast. Top it off with a Falcon-inspired design that looks sleek as all hell, and we have one bird that helped me through a few runs through Kalos. What? I'm a sucker for birds of prey. Deal with it. Fire is a type that I understand. It's a type that I know exactly what I'm getting into, sweeping through the opposition, leaving nothing left standing in your way. As you'd expect, a fair few of my favourites are fire types, and a fair few of them will appear on this list. And I always look forward to seeing what new fiery mons are able to grab in each new generation, especially when it comes to the starters. I've honestly yet to see a fire type starter that's disappointed me, although I will admit that some are clearly better than others. Every new generation, the fire-type star is by my side as I take down trainer after trainer. Embor took hit after hit from Alder and still kept going, Quilava obliterated Whitney's Miltank and Soul Silver, and Blaziken tore through the Hoenn gyms in Elite 4 like it was nothing. However, despite my love for these bundles of fire and flame, one simple fact remains true. You never forget your first. Hello Infernape, I finally get to talk about you. I'll admit, I do have a sort of soft spot for this Pokémon, especially when it comes to design. A monkey martial arts master with a flaming head? Yeah, not something I'd like to run into in a dark alley. Hey, I was an impressionable 12-year-old when I first played Diamond. The design resonated with me. It's also got a sort of armoured brawler thing going on, as the golden markings resemble armoured plates. Kinda reminds me of a character from Tekken in a way. And I like Tekken. As for its stats, sweet. 140 base attack and special attack and 108 base speed. Pretty damn impressive sweeping stats there. Sure, it can be beaten by common types and powerful Pokemon, but for what you get, it's pretty good. Sure, its typing does give it a few common weaknesses, those being water, ground, flying and psychic, but its moveset allows it to counter a majority of those. Always take advantage of its high attack power. Thunder Punch, Stone Edge, Rock Tomb and Rock Slide take care of those pesky flying types. Grass Knot and Solar Beam take care of water and ground types, and it naturally learns a bunch of fighting and fire moves to deal with any ground types that either have a rock or steel secondary typing, such as Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Break, and Focus Blast. I suppose Infernape does have trouble with psychic types, which only counts to that as Shadow Claw and Fling, but it does get U-turn via TM, which should hopefully let it deal decent damage while retreating. Ha! No wonder this thing's my go-to start whenever I revisit the Sinnoh titles. You know, I was originally going to put Lapras on here, but then Sun and Moon came out and completely fucked up the video structure, so, wishy-washy. This Pokemon has a pretty cool gimmick to it, which is thanks to its signature ability, Schooling. What this does is quite simple. If Wishy-Washy has more than 20% of its HP remaining at the start of a turn, it will change from its wimpy solo form into its Beast of a School form. Not only does it get a design that's basically a monster fish made up of floating smaller fish, its stat total jumps from a wimpy 175, aka the lowest stat total of any Pokemon thus far, all the way to an insane 620. And all of that goes to attack and defense stats. And its move pool gives it access to all kinds of moves to capitalize its 140 attack stats. It gets Brine, Double Edge, Dive, Aqua Tail and Hydro Pump to level up, and TMs give it access to Ice Beam, Scald, Waterfall, Surf and even Earthquake. And it also gets Muddy Water through breeding. Sounds pretty tough, right? Yeah, unfortunately this isn't exactly perfect. Should Wishy-Washy's health drop back below that 20% threshold, it's back to its whippy solo form on the next turn. Plus, Wishy-Washy can only really access the ability once it is level 20, and it does take some time to level up, so it's not like you can just catch one and immediately start tearing shit up. But then again, it opens into its gimmick. You can't exactly have the reward without the risk. Luckily though, there are a few ways around this. For a start, most Wishy-Washy find in the wild when you first encounter them are around level 15 or 16, with some being level 19, so it's not like you have to do much grinding to get the most out of it. Plus, it also gets Aqua Ring via level up to assist with keeping its HP above that threshold. Finally, we have those insane defenses, 130 base defense and 135 base special defense. Yeah, this fish is not going down easily. Unless your opponent has a good electric or grass type, in which case you're screwed. Nothing much you can do about that. Grass is kind of a weird one for me. While I do like a lot of the designs and inspirations behind them, I just never found a reason to use them in battle. It's not that they're bad, it's just that I didn't care for them all that much. There's only really a small handful of grass types that I actually use, and the only 3 of those that aren't starters are Roserade, Tsarina, and Trevenant. While I could easily talk about those, I happen to like a certain grass starter a lot more. Have I talked about my love for Venusaur before? Don't think I have. Let's start with that design. It's basically part dinosaur, part plant. It's simple, sure, but it's memorable. I suppose being the version mascot for 2 games kinda helps in that aspect, but it's also got this whole plant-based kaiju thing going on, which its Megaform also helps with, which also turns it into a sentient rainforest. Because Game Freak. Typing-wise, it's nothing too unique, being a dual-type grass and poison Pokemon. It's nothing too special, but added poison typing gives it handy resistance to both fighting and fairy-type moves, plus its Megaform also comes packaged with the oh-so-handy ability Thick Fat, which cuts damage by fire and ice-type moves by half, effectively removing 2 of its weaknesses. As for stats, they honestly surprise me. I knew Venusaur would be a tanky Pokemon just by looking at it, and a quick glance at its stat distribution confirms it. It's got a fair amount of physical and special bulk with a decent attack stat to allow it to strike back pretty well. However, what truly surprised me was its speed. Sure, 80 base speed isn't much, but that's honestly faster than I expected. And with the right training, it can get as high as 284. I thought I'd be dealing with a speed of 50 or something. Found myself outspeeding a fair few enemy Pokemon because of that. Combine that with a move pool that includes Venoshock, Double Edge, Petal Blizzard, Sludge Bomb, Giga Impact, Solar Beam, and Petal Dance, and it can power through a lot of the situations. Keep handing with Fire and X as it quite literally throws through the competition. Then again, the Gen 6 games were piss easy anyways, make of that what you will. The fighting type honestly houses some of my favourite Pokemon, probably because a lot of them are quite powerful in the offensive department. There's kind of an entertaining brainlessness how a lot of them function. Sure, strategy does come into it a bit, however you can get the same results by just spamming powerful moves over and over, letting you easily demolish entire teams. Plays in the Catharsis factor quite well, unless you happen to run into a Ghost type user, in which case you're screwed. Fuck you, Fantina. So, which fighting type made the cut? How about one of the fan favourites in Generation 6? Hello, Hawlucha! For starters, I need to mention that design. It's basically part bird, part Mexican wrestler, or luchador if you prefer. It has cape-like wings on its back and its face like some kind of sleek bird-like wrestling mask. Probably one of my favourite designs from the Kalos games, to be honest. Its typing also plays into this, being a dual-type fighting and flying Pokemon. As a guy who prefers to have both a flying type and a fighting type on my team, Hawlucha's dual typing allows to pull double duty and free up the slot on my party for something else, which I promptly filled with Talonflame, who is also a flying type. Oops. No one can just let it handle bug and grass types of these while also getting a handy immunity to ground. This naturally gives it a fair amount of useful moves such as the always accurate aerial ace, the reliable acrobatics, and the devastating sky drop. However, the key move in its arsenal is Flying Press, a primary fighting type move that also deals flying type damage. Yep, a move that's got 2 types in one and also has a base power of 100. That is going to sting. It's also got a pretty decent speed set to take advantage of that, with its base speed being 112. You sensing a pattern yet? Yeah, I like fast and powerful Pokemon. What, I ain't got time for long and drawn out battles. Blitzcrank, suckers! Bug is a weird type. While the type is fairly common, there aren't that many good ones. Sure, we have those like Heracross, Scizor, and one Generation 7 Pokemon we'll get to later, but the rest are kinda mediocre. It wasn't until Generation 5 that we got a roster of bug types that actually were a damn. Sorry, worth a damn. Sure, Levani and Scolipede are fine, I even keep the latter in the reserve team for either annoying roadblocks or those rare occasions when I battle the people, yet there is one Unova bug type that I instantly fell in love with. Volcarona. I'm gonna be honest with you here, this thing is awesome. Sure, it's a little hard to get, but it seems to be a pretty nice reward for those players that actually went out of their way to get one. How'd you get your hands on it? Either you take the time to hatch that Larvesta egg you got and raise your new hatched Pokemon all the way to level 59, or you go through the tedious bottom floors of the Relic Castle, only to come face to face with level 70 Voltron if you're playing the original Black and White, or one that's either level 35 or 65 in the sequels, depending on when you choose to go and nab it. Sounds a little tedious, but damn is it worth it! First off, look at that design. It's basically the fusion of both an Atlas Moth and some kind of solar deity, with resembling some kind of fiery angel due to his body shape and position of wings, which look like they're actually made of fire, especially with its sprite in black and white, as the flapping of its wings resembles flickering flames. The whole design looks quite impressive and majestic, and it also gives off an intimidating aura. I could honestly see this thing being worshipped by some kind of ancient people, and given where you find it, that's not too big of a stretch to assume that's the case. It's also no slouch in the stat department either, with a pretty decent base speed of 100, base special defense of 105, and a pretty nice special attack of 135, with it learning a ton of moves to capitalize on that. Getting attacks to Stab, Fiery Dance, Bug Buzz and Heat Wave via Level Up, and Flamethrower, Fire Blast and Overheat via TM. Outside the Stab moves, it gets Hurricane, Solar Beam and Hyper Beam, along with a few moves to boost its high special stats even more. Sunny Day, which improves the effectiveness of Solar Beam and those fire type attacks, along with Quiver Dance, Amnesia and Calm Mind raising both its special attack and special defenses, with Quiver Dance also increasing its speed. Pretty handy when powering through those trains that underestimate you. Sure, it does have a crippling weakness to rock, but I suppose that's how you balance it out. So, Gardevoir. Predictable choice for my favourite psychic type, I know, but Gardevoir honestly deserves the love it gets. And I mean that in relation to the game's only get your fan art out of here! Okay, joking aside, I'm a pretty big fan of its design. It honestly looks quite elegant with a flowing gown-like appendage, along with its head that resembles a rather stylish hairstyle. It actually resembles some sort of regal dancer now that I think about it. Its Megaform also takes this dancer theme even further, giving it a more elaborate headpiece, markings on the arm which makes them resemble gloves, and the flowing dress now resembles a ball gown. Looks quite nice, honestly. Also has one of my favourite shinies in the series. Its regular form is basically just blue instead of green, but there's something about that blue and black colour scheme of the Mega that just sticks out. Still looks elegant, but now it has some sort of gothic feel to it. Probably that black dress, that'll do it. As for its battle prowess, it's probably one of my favourite special attackers. I mean, sure, it can pull its weight as a supporter or status fighter in double or triple battles thanks to moves like Reflect, Safeguard, Light Screen, Heal Pulse and Trick Room, but where Gardevoir really shines is when you unleash that beast of a special attack stat of 165! Holy crap! Pair that with moves like Thunderbolt, Psychic, Future Sight, Energy Ball and Shadow Ball, and there's not that many Pokemon that will survive that kind of onslaught. It got even better in Gen 6 with its new Part Fairy typing. Not only did that give it access to moves like Moonblast and Dazzling Gleam, but its new typing removed its weaknesses to Dark and Bug types and gave it an immunity to Dragon. Sure, it now has weaknesses to Poison and Steel, and it still has a Ghost weakness you need to worry about, but considering how those types are released defensively, and the only enemy trainers you need to concern yourself with are Wiltstrom from X and Y, and Phoebe from their own games, and also Sydney if you're playing the original GBA release. Not that really a big of an issue. Especially the fighting type on your team. Always got a couple of good ones. As is probably common knowledge by now, I'm quite a big fan of science fiction. Naturally, Pokemon based around this gets big plus points from me. Deoxys is basically an alien virus, Elgyem and Behem are Pokemon based on the Roswell incident, and Celosis evolutions are effectively cell division, scaled up by a factor of about, a few hundred million. Then we also have all those Pokemon based off sentient technology and/or robots. Electrode, Rotom, Porygon, Genesect, and of course, Metagross. Surprisingly, my first experience with Metagross is from a side game. Encountered is an optional boss of sorts in the Golrock Squad hideout in the post-game with the original Pokemon Ranger. Once I captured it, being the impressionable 13-year-old that I was, come on, the thing basically looked like a killer robot of death, I was a kid, it looked cool, I wanted it, so I decided to go back to Pokemon Diamond and, well, try and get one. After speaking to a friend, naming a Beldum and spending the best part of a fortnight training it up, I had my hands on the Metagross, which I instantly fell in love with. Fun fact, it's one of the two pseudo-legendary Pokemon to not be a Dragon type, instead having a dual typing of Psychic and Steel. Like most Steel-type Pokemon, Metagross is focused on durability, effectively being one hell of a physical tank with a base defense of 130, And while it has 4 weaknesses, those being Fire, Ground, Ghost, and Dark, it has a grand total of 9 resistances. Grass, Normal, Flying, Fighting, Ice, Steel, Psychic, Dragon, and Fairy. Sure, its special defense is a little lacking, but 90 isn't exactly terrible. Plus it also learns Light Screen via TM, so that can help out quite a bit. Comes in handy when dealing with fire types. Knowing it's performed quite well as a tank in battle, it also looks the part too. I mentioned it looked like a killer robot earlier, and that's no exaggeration. It's got this whole experimental war mech feeling to it, making it look like some sort of spider tank. I can also imagine an army deploying Metagross as weapons during the Pokémon War. Looks really intimidating. Keep in mind that 13-year-old me was also really into Star Wars, and having just seen the prequels around the time that I first played Diamond, I made a connection between Metagross and those spider droids. Yay for nostalgia! Rock types. Not a big fan of them, honestly. I feel the same kind of indifference towards them that I feel towards grass types. While I do keep Tyranitar and Lycanroc on my reserve teams, I've never had a rock type on my main team in any of the games. With the sole exception of one. Tyrantrum. Let's just get the obvious out of the way. Why the hell did it take since Generation 6 for us to get a T-Rex Pokemon? Honestly thought we'd get it before the ancient plant creature and the Anomalocaris. Also, loving that design. Sure, it's a T-Rex, but it also has a few, shall we say, kingly features to it. There's a cape-like fringe in its neck, a beard-like lower jaw, and the crown-shaped crest on top of its head. They really nailed the whole King of the Dinosaurs look with this thing, and its rock dragon typing also goes with that. Sure, this typing does give it a few more weaknesses, but it also negates 2 of the rock type's biggest weaknesses, water and grass. As for its battle prowess, yeah, it's kind of hilariously brainless. It's primarily focused on physical power and is pretty easy to take down if you know what you're doing, but it's so much fun to use. Its attack power is a pretty good 121 and has the ability Strong Jaw, boosting the power of biting moves by 50%, which it gets a good mileage out of, seeing as the only 2 biting moves it can't learn are Hyper Fang and Psychic Fangs. Yep, its move pool includes the ever so popular Crunch, a move that's dependent on the attack stat of the Pokemon using it. Pair that with the power boost granted by its ability and its previously mentioned high attack, and that'll hurt quite a bit. Aside from those biting moves, it also comes packing some pretty impressive moves to take advantage of its attacking prowess. Stab boosted Dragon Tail, Dragon Claw, Rock Slide, and Head Smash through level up, along with the insanely useful Earthquake. Plus TMs give it access to Bulldoze, Stone Edge, Rock Tomb, Brick Break, and Giga Impact, with the latter move having a tremendous base power of 150. I don't care how your defenses are, 1 or 2 hits from this thing and you're done. I'm actually sort of glad they're extinct. Mostly extinct. So, this is an odd one. Nidoking. Not exactly the most spectacular Pokemon out there, is it? Its stats are pretty much even split across the board, and its level up move pool is tiny. Sure, it learns Chip Away, Earth Power, and Mega Horn, but that's about it. It did get a bit of a buff in Gen 6, raising its base attack from 92 to 102, but aside from that, it's pretty... So why do I like it? Well, it's all to do with that design and sweet TM move pool. For starters, let's take a look at its design. Didn't think Deep Purple could look threatening, but the designers managed to pull it off. While the majority of Generation 1 Pokemon designs look quite simplistic and easy to determine what it is they're based off, for example, Lapras is a Loch Ness monster, Machamp is a wrestler, Rhyhorn is a rhino, etc., Nidoking doesn't really have that. It's quite a creative design for a Kanto Pokemon, I honestly can't tell just what it's supposed to be. It's got elements of mammals like rabbits and mice, like the face, hands and ears, a rhino's horn, and reptilian traits to the rest of its body, like the tail and armor plates. Looks like a fusion of Godzilla, a rhino, and a mouse. While it sounds like a terrible mishmash of ideas, the final result is pretty good. All the elements mesh together quite well, creating a unique reptilian Pokemon design that's unlike anything else out there. Except maybe Nidoqueen, but that's beside the point. Besides, related species and all. As for that TM move pool, surprisingly has quite the impressive type coverage. Learning moves from a surprising 13 types, 15 if we include the flying and bug moves it gets through level up, with at least 1 attacking move from 14 of those. It's a pretty varied move pool, letting it deal with a large variety of types. Sure, it does run into a few problems when dealing with Ghost and Psychic types, seeing as the best Dark-type move learns is Thief, but then again, switching out is a thing. Unless it's your last Pokemon. But if that's the case, it's on you for letting yourself get into that situation. Sure, it's by far from the best Ground type out there, but I still have a soft spot for it. especially after it helped me out a lot during my first run through of Fire Red. This was actually one of the hardest ones for me to choose from. Not because I like a lot of poison types, but because there's only really 4 good poison types out there that I just can't decide between. Those being Toxicroak, Crobat, Scolipede, and Salazzle. Well, there's also Nidoking and Venusaur, we've already talked about those. Toxicroak has always been a mainstay on my Sinnoh Reserve teams. Crobat has helped me out considerably in most of the games, even taking down majority of Elite Four members, and Scolipede is way better than an early game bug type has any right to be. However, just one managed to slightly edge above the rest, and process of elimination tells you it's Salazzle. Sure, this thing is a pain in the ass to get, since you can only get it by evolving a female Salandit, a species with 30% encounter rates, and only 12.5% than a female. Good luck. At least with Volcarona you are guaranteed to get one, not so much here. Despite this, it's possibly one of the most unique Pokémon of Generation 7. So, Poison and Fire type, eh? And it's a venomous lizard Pokémon? Don't think we've seen one of those before. It also has possibly one of the most interesting and unique abilities out of all the Alola Pokémon. Corrosion. What does it do? Well, what can most poison type moves do? Poison the target. Self-explanatory, really. What can't be poisoned? Poison and steel types. What does corrosion do? Yeah, you probably figured this out already. Corrosion lets you poison the 2 types typically immune to poison. However, this ability would be useless without the attack power and moveset to back it up. Luckily, Salazzle McDazzle has you covered. Having stats which make it function as a glass cannon special sweeper, with a speed of 117 and a special attack stat of 111, and an arsenal of moves that includes Venoshock, Sludge Wave, Sludge Bomb, and Toxic. Toxic in particular inflicts the badly poison status, which will increase the poison damage dealt every turn. Comes in handy in wearing down and breaking through the defenses of those tanky steel types. And if that's not enough, it lends a few handy fire type moves like Overheat, Flamethrower, and Fire Blast to hopefully take them out quickly. And if you're a fan of debuffing through status effects, it gets both Will-O-Wisp and Swagger, along with a track if that's more your style. With the right training, this thing can pretty much dominate a lot of battles. I, for one, submit myself to our new Reptilian Overlords. Remember that bug type I brought up when talking about Volcarona? Well, it's later. Time to introduce one of my favourite Pokémon of Generation 7, Vikavolt. By extreme coincidence, every Alola Pokémon I brought up so far has been a Totem Pokémon. First Wishy-Washy, then Salazzle, and now Vikavolt. I swear I'm not doing this on purpose. Little known fact, insects and reptiles are some of my favourite types of animals out there. Pretty much any reptilian insectoid Pokémon with a cool design gets major plus points from me. It's basically a stag beetle with a railgun for mandibles, which can also function as jaws. I probably want to stay clear of those. Anyone else also thinking it resembles some sort of space fighter? No? Just me then. It's probably my favourite out of all the Generation 7 designs, and it was something I honestly wasn't expecting. Battle-wise, it's pretty damn good. It's way better than the early game bug type was any right to be, which even extends to its pre-evolutions. Sure, Grubbin is quite weak, but Charjabug is one tanky little insect, which managed to carry me through a fair amount of the island trials. As for Vikavolt itself, wow. After all that work needed to get it, Charjabug only evolves in the late game era, which takes some time to get to, god damn it, Game Freak! It's one hell of a payoff. Its ability to levitate removes its ground weakness, so only really to worry about fire and rock type moves. While its speed and special defense are a little lacking, it does gain access to 2 moves to help out with this, Charge and Agility. Charge, in particular, is a really good move for it to have, as not only does it boost its special defense, it will also double the power of the next electric type move used, and when you consider that its special attack is a pretty impressive 145, that's going to deal a fair amount of damage. However, all that power isn't going to do you much good if you don't have a decent arsenal of moves to back it up. Luckily, you're fine. Thunderbolt, Discharge, and Charge Beam all take advantage of the high special attack, and it also gains both Electro Whip and, weirdly, Mud Shot through breeding. Plus, despite its somewhat lacking physical attack of 82, it gets a fair amount of decent physical moves like Wild Charge, X-Scissor, Crunch, and oddly enough, Poison Jab. Sure, it may not be the best move pool out there, but it's a case of quality against quantity. The Charge Thunderbolt combo in particular is enough to take down a fair deal of the opposition. Just stay clear of fire, it doesn't react well to being cooked. How much flack am I gonna get for putting this as my favourite ice type? Fuck it, I do what I want around here. What is my favourite ice type, I hear you ask? Well, it's it's Vanillix. Sure, having a scented ice cream cone as a Pokemon is a little weird, not exactly sure if I should catch it or eat it. Actually, that being said, I wonder how it tastes. Surprisingly, this goofy design is actually part of the reason why I like it so much. Think of it like this. What's more humiliating? Me destroying an uber-powerful dragon type with either another dragon or powerful fairy type, or me kicking your ass with a goddamn dessert? It's a pretty good feeling when you sweep Drayden with one of these, let me tell you. However, while general silliness and the catharsis factor are fine, they can only get you so far. You're gonna need something else to make me like you, Vanillix. Let's just take a quick look at your stats and... okay, was not expecting that. Base stat total of 535, aka the same stat total of Lapras, Crobat, and Rhyperior. Nice. And pretty good stats all around. Sure, 79 speed and 71 HP aren't brilliant, but they aren't terrible either. Pretty okay defenses, and a really handy special attack of 110. That'll do nicely. Pretty impressive for living food, I guess. As for moves, damn, that's pretty good. Sure, its type coverage is pretty poor, as outside of Ice and normal type moves, the only damaging moves it learns are Astonish, Mirror Shot, Water Pulse, and Flash Cannon, with only Water Pulse and Flash Cannon being worth using, Water Pulse being useful dealing with fire types, and Flash Cannon just being a nice move to have in general. However, for those Ice type moves, you're kinda spoilt for choice. Freeze Dry, which deals super effective damage to water types, Sheer Cold, a 1-hit KO, Frost Breath, which will always be a critical hit, and paired with its high special attack stat, when that move will hurt, Ice Shard, a priority move that really hurts dragon types like Garchomp and Dragonite, and Ice Beam and Blizzard, two really powerful ice type moves. Ice Beam in particular also has a chance of freezing the target. Sure, it's a little situational, but then again, so are most ice types. However, for what it is, it's actually really good in what limited roles it can play, especially when it comes to dealing with dragon and ground types. My sweeps of Clay, Drayden, and Iris is testament enough to that. Something I've noticed with Dark types is that regardless if the Pokemon is good or not, they all have really cool designs. Especially Tyranitar and Malamar. Those things are basically Godzilla and Cthulhu. Don't think I've seen a Dark type whose design I honestly didn't like. Well, except for Purloin and Liepard. They look kinda eh. Then again, I don't think anyone likes those two. As it turns out, the Dark type Pokemon with my favourite design is actually my favourite Dark type overall. Absol. For a start, I should probably explain why this is my favourite design. Sure, it's not the most spectacular design out there, looking like a fusion of wolf and cat, except with a rather snazzy looking scythe-shaped horn. However, it looks sleek thanks to its body shape, and the overall design gives off an aura of mystery. It also has a really nice looking Mega Evolution, what with the tufts of fur on its back resembling wings, making it look like some kind of angel. Something else I want to bring up is regarding its lore. Normally Pokemon doesn't really delve into lore that much as to the legendaries, but Absol appears to be one of the few exceptions. It's effectively heralded as a bringer of disaster, where in reality it's trying to warn people of incoming disaster. Dicks. This is tied into the location where Absol can be found in the games, all of which are places where disasters happen or have happened in the series. Route 213 near Lake Valor, which was drained by Team Galactic, Mount Coronet before Giratina is released in Platinum, Route 13 in the Giant Chasm, the location where Team Plasma makes their final stand, Tapu Village, which is destroyed by one of the Island Guardians, and Altru Tower, the HQ of Team Dim Sum in Shadows of Elmir. Even its abilities tie into this Bring of Disaster motif, getting both Pressure, which makes the opponent use 2 PP per move, and Super Luck, which raises critical hit chance. Absol also has one of the most versatile movesets out there, basically like Nidoking, only a lot better. Sure, its level up move pool is a little lacking in terms of type coverage, although it does get Psycho Cut, Night Slash, Future Sight, and Razor Wind, along with Detect, Swords Dance, Me First, and Perish Song, all of which are really powerful moves to have. Me First in particular is rather nasty, as it steals the move your opponent was planning to use and uses it against them. However, while this doesn't sound like much, once we start to delve into TMs, tons more options for it open up, learning all kinds of powerful moves from a wide variety of types. Stab, Snarl, Dark Pulse and Brutal Swing, the devastating Ice-type Blizzard and Ice Beam, the powerful electric moves Thunderbolt, Thunder and Charge Beam, reliable Fire-type attacks Fire Blast and Flamethrower, Stone Edge and Rock Tomb, the all-good rounded Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball, and even X-Scissor and Hyper Beam. Holy crap, that's pretty damn impressive. And for all you breeders out there, if you put the work in for it, you can get Zen Headbutt, Mega Horn, Assurance, Play Rough, and even Punishment. A move which deals more damage the more the opponents increase their stats. Ow! gonna be honest here, the designs of most ghost types aren't all that appealing to me. There's only really so much one can do with basic spirits after all, and while those like Dusknoir are still pretty cool, I lean more towards the whole possessed object group of ghost types. And let's see here, we have a poltergeist that can possess a wide variety of electronics, a possessed tree that was subject to critical research fail last time I brought it up, a possessed sword that drains the life force of those who try to use it, and a possessed chandelier. Okay. Oh, it's a ghost fire dual type? Gimme! I guess this could be considered a somewhat cliche choice of my favourite ghost type, seeing as Chandelure is quite the popular pick these days. But then again, it got this stats for quite a good reason, as despite lacking legs, Chandelure is more than capable of kicking your ass. Actually, I'm not even sure it has arms either. I mean, I think those are arms, it can clearly move them, but I'm not entirely sure if it can grab things with them. We see it using them in both the anime and Pokémon tournament. Nah, I'm overthinking this. Moving on. Chandelure has some pretty impressive stats for a simple ceiling light, and it's got decent speed and surprisingly defensive 90 apiece. But what you need to concern yourself with is that special attack stat of 145. As for moves, well, it's a little awkward. Its level up move pool is tiny, only having 5 to choose between: Pain Split, Smog, Confuse Ray, Flame Burst, and Hex, with the only ones that are worth using are Pain Split, Hex, and Flame Burst. And while you can carry over some pretty handy moves from its prior evolutions such as Nightshade, Inferno, and Curse, the bulk of its arsenal does sadly come from TMs and breeding. But what an arsenal it is! It acts some of my favourite fire-type attacks in the series: the ever so popular Fire Blast and Flamethrower, the Do-or-Die Overheat, Flame Charge, which raises speed every time it hits, which can help boost its speed quite effectively, and Heat Wave, which is not only pretty powerful, but hits all adjacent Pokemon, making it a handy move to have in double and triple battles. Outside of this, there's a fair amount of status moves: Will-O-Wisp, Trick Room, Toxic, Embargo, and good old Substitute. Yay for mind games! Shame it's a little hard to get, but again, balancing. I'm also happy for it getting in Pokémon Tournament, even if it doesn't really have, you know, limbs. Thought they'd be pretty important for a fighting game. When one thinks of dragon types, I typically imagine powerful beasts sweeping through the battlefield with necks in no position. No thanks to the popular dragons Hydreigon and Garchomp. While I do like using these Pokemon, most dragons seem to fall into this pattern of focusing on attack power instead of defences. But I'd like a little variance from time to time. Fortunately, Generation 6 gave us one of the most interesting dragon types out there: Goodra. When I said this Pokemon was interesting, I meant it. For a start, it looks quite a bit different from your average dragon type, minus those odd ones like Altaria, Mega Ampharos, and Alolan Executor. Sure, it's still looks draconic, but it also shares some attributes of snails and also pisses me out of goo. It also looks quite huggable. Probably do that goofy face. Anyone else want to hug a Goodra? No? Aw. Even its stats are far from what you'd expect from your average dragon. Sure, it's got an attack of 100 and a special attack of 110, and while you can use it to power through the opposition, it truly shines as a special tank with an insane special defense of 150. Dragon types are typically quite difficult to take down as it is, just think 4 common types, those being fire, water, grass and electric, and its only weaknesses being itself, ice, and thanks to Generation 6, fairy. Considering how the majority of fairy type attacks are special, and the same goes for the best ice type moves, this naturally gives it a fair amount of durability. Although dragon type moves are still a big problem, but then again it's always risky fighting a dragon with another dragon. Moveset wise, it has some pretty cool moves all around. Its level up move pool is a bit small, but it's another case of quality versus quality. It gets Stab Outrage, Dragon Breath, and Dragon Pulse, along with Aqua Tail, Muddy Water, Body Slam, and Power Whip. Looks pretty cool so far. What about those TMs? That is some pretty nice type coverage you got there, Goodra. 2 ice type moves, 2 fire type attacks, 2 electric type moves, a dark type move, a rock type move, a couple of ground type moves, and a fighting type move. It's not like those are wimpy moves like Ember, Powder Snow, and Thunder Shock. I'm talking Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Blizzard, Brutal Swing, Rock Slide, Focus Blast, even Sludge Wave and Earthquake. Possibly one of the most well-rounded movesets out there, which really helps complement its status as a powerful tank. Goodra didn't just break the mold, it fucking shattered it into 1,000 pieces. Despite this list being completely unranked, I did want to end this video on a high note, so I decided to make sure the Pokemon I bring up last is one I would place in my top 10, possibly in my top 5, and Said pig just so happens to be a fairy type. Being the most recently added type, as of the time of this video's creation at least, who knows, I think with a light type in Generation 10 or something like that. Anyways, being the most recent type added to the series, there naturally aren't that many fairy types out there. Sadly though, when the type was first introduced, the new fairy types weren't exactly all that great. Outside of Clefairy and Xerneas, the latter of those two being legendary, your best options for a fairy type in Gen 6 were all Pokemon that either became pure fairy or part fairy. Thankfully though, Generation 7 managed to fix this somewhat. While I do like using Primarina and on occasion Ribombee, the one fairy type that quickly became a mainstay on my team was the one and only Mimikyu. This is probably the most interesting Pokemon design, and it's a rather unique take on the usual Pika clone formula. It's basically a Pokemon that was so nightmarish to look at and so depressed to other Pokemon's popularity, and particularly Pikachu, that the only way it could see to be loved was to construct a Pikachu disguise in an attempt to trick people into loving it. You even get to see a Stalker Shrine or room full of hate that one particular Mimikyu is constructed for Pikachu. I'm not entirely sure if that's depressing or disturbing. I'll get back to you on that. Surprisingly, this whole disguise thing even ties into his battle capability somewhat through his ability, also named Disguise. Okay, what does his ability do? Simple, it's a free hit. Yep, the first hit Mimikyu takes in any battle will deal no damage, instead busting its disguise. While this doesn't protect against entry hazards or weather damage, same goes for damage caused by stats effects, it'll protect against pretty much everything else. Super effective hits, ultimate moves like Blast Burn and Draco Meteor, the signature moves of legendaries, Z moves, and even one-hit KOs. Disguise tanks every single one of them. On top of that, it only has two weaknesses, those being Ghost and Steel, and has a special defense of 105. So even if its disguise gets busted, it's gonna stick around for quite a while. And it can even hit back quite hard too, with an attack stat of a rather respectable 90, and moves like Shadow Claw, Wood Hammer, and Play Rough from leveling up, and Leech Life, Exeter, and Facade from TM. You can even boost staying power thanks to Light Screen, Protect, and Substitute, and it has a lot of moves to boost attack power. Swords Dance, Work Up, Bulk Up, and Hone Claws. Hone Claws in particular also boost accuracy. It's also the attack boosting move I'd personally recommend. It's quite the handy little Pokemon to have around with you. This has been the Cyber Engineer, and I thank you for watching today's episode of The Drawing Board.